Hi, I'm back. Talking about rapport in the last vlog, and I thought I'd continue that theme because there's so much to say, really. One of the things I've touched today, I'm actually traveling, as you might see. I'm a hotel, which is part of my reality these days. I travel to, yeah, be close to the companies rather than them coming to me. Much cheaper for them to just pay my airfare instead of all of the participants. One of the things we talked about today, and I thought about sharing with you, is you know how we have different preferences when it comes to extrovert versus introverts. Those words can be highly loaded because there's so many misinterpretations about your capabilities, whether you're extrovert or introvert. I like to touch that and share some examples with you, as well as some tips, what you can do in order to create some meetings that will allow really both categories, both preferences to thrive. Extroverts, what they do is that they get loads of energy from other people. Being among others is really what makes them bloom, you could say. Whereas introverts, they recharge on their own. Like, disconnecting from others, being in a hotel, reading a book, whatever, going for a walk, being by yourself is a way to recharge for an introvert. It has nothing to do with the airtime, although there can be, of course, differences in a meeting about who's speaking. How much airtime is each of the preferences taking up? I, for example, typical extrovert, my mind is triggered by my mouth. I can't help it. Like, expressing thoughts will help me actually to understand myself better. Whereas my more introvert friends, they like to think things through before they deliver an answer. And when they do, it's usually a really good answer. And I might have, gotten to the same conclusion if I only stopped for a while and reflected, which I don't, because I need the interaction really for my brain to work. And this is, in short, really the essence of the difference. Do you thrive on your own? You need to be, secluded from others in order for your brain to think and get these crisp ideas and gather the information you need and draw the right conclusions? Or do you need to be among others? One silly example I could say is last year when I was throwing a birthday party. I usually don't throw a big birthday party, but I really felt that I've been, putting restrictions on my extroversy. Sweden is kind of, I would say, introvert country. Me being half Latino, I want to have my hands out loud. I want to have big expressions. I'm not too worried about what I say, because if I say something wrong, we could always change it. I could be less careful, you might say, sometimes with words. And also, I love being around people. I love how they stimulate me. But, in Sweden also, we live in a constricted apartments. We don't have too much space. I just fallen out of the habit of organizing big parties, which I longed for. So I went home to my wife and I said, it's really time for me to throw a big party. I know just how I want it. It's my birthday party. Please, can I have it the way I want? And she's like, sure, of course. I love you, darling. It's fine, but what do you have in mind? I'm like, I want to invite loads of people. She's like, okay, but how many? I'm like, I invited 25 already. What? You already invited people? Yeah, I mean... And, 10 of them said they couldn't, so I invited 30 more. 30 more? Are you crazy? How's that going to be, And there are lots of dimensions in this, but just to give you an example of... I just wanted a bunch of people to come to our place and to, be really happy. Organizing such an event, I mean, was I worried that where everybody was going to sit, we don't have that much space? Food, I catered everything. I organized some quiz something to get us all talking with each other. I knew everyone, of course, but they didn't know each other. I wanted them to get to know each other because I saw so many nice connections between them. In short, this is how I work. I mean, typical extrovert mind. Love being among loads of people, even though I didn't have the time to really connect with each and every one of them. I was so happy I was able to give them this, for them to discover each other, and for me to just be among them during that day. It was an incredible experience, and I really look forward to doing it again this year. It will be in like 3 months' time. At the workplace, this can happen as well. Like, we have different preferences, and this will create conflicts. It does. I mean, I meet loads of companies where this is a true issue, and in these days we talk so much about diversity. We want everyone to contribute. I mean, basically we're paying them to contribute, so we really want to have their opinion. But what if we're setting up our meetings in a way that doesn't really allow everyone to thrive? I can give one example. I usually have people talking to each other. I want them to reflect on something I've said. So I asked them, talk in pairs about something. Talking in pairs might work for introverts, but they might prefer as well just to have some time to gather their own thoughts in this. I mean, I just said something. They want to digest it and, have their reflective mind work on it in the way they thrive. It's like in silence. I mean, even putting on music can be annoying to them. Whereas others, like myself, I just love to hear another person's perspective. I'm just eager to share my own perspective because I know I will learn something about my own perspective while I express it. But expressing my opinion too soon might be an obstacle for the introverts who are not done yet. And the important thing here is that we should not be judgmental about things. I know there's so many misconceptions out there. I heard, countless podcasts, even, well-recognized psychologists. I won't say any names because I'd love to speak with them one day about these themes. And, whether or not you are fit for a certain job, depending on your preference here. Like salesperson. If you're a salesperson, some of the big coaches would say, if you're going to hire a salesperson, hire an extrovert. I mean, basically what you want them to do is to get your message out there, connect with people. So that's extroversy, isn't it? Whereas I might say, well, depends on the culture where you want to sell. And also, I mean, it would be so nice to talk to a salesperson who's an introvert, who's, really good at listening. Might not share all their ideas, take up all the airtime, allow me to express myself, and help me see how their product or service would benefit me. It's the same in job situations. Just because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you won't share your perspective. It just means that you might need some time before your perspective is clear to you, and you might need that time in silence. Whereas the extrovert person just love to talk about it and just organize big brainstorming events where everybody's just throwing up loads of ideas, and that might be fine in some work conditions, even in some parts of a project where you're in an initial phase. It's excellent to be an extrovert because you're there, you're bringing loads of ideas. But there are other phases where you need to cut off ideas and really go forward and see which of these ideas do really align with our long-term goals. And to be able to be aware of the long-term goals and the strategy you have, you might need to reflect. And that's when the introverts might thrive rather than in the beginning of a process. They might be late bloomers, if you want to say so, in a project where you will show that they don't depend on their own enthusiasm as much. They have it all in them. It's like a slower, steady pace where I can go, bananas, totally in on something for 2 weeks and then lose my energy and just doesn't matter because I go ahead and it's something new. But what I'm missing is the long-term perspective. always the long-term perspective. So a tip for you, if you're organizing meetings where you have extroverts and introverts, don't take up all the airtime. Make sure to, if you have some information you want to share it before the meeting if you can. If you're presenting new information during the meeting, please just stop for a while. Take 2 minutes of just silence if you can, and let it, digest in people's minds before you ask them to share. And it might be better to ask them to share in smaller groups before you ask them to express themselves within the whole group. I mean, if you're a big group or if it's a new group, it will take time before people trust each other. The risk is that you will ask people to share their opinions, and you might only hear the opinions of the extrovert people. The introverts might even, confront you afterwards, or even after the meeting's ended, and they will say, I have some ideas I'd like to share about this. And you will wonder, but why didn't you share this during the meeting? We would have loved to hear that perspective. Yeah, but they weren't ready, and you weren't giving them the chance to be ready at the meeting. So basically, allow for silence, reflection in a meeting, send information before, if possible. Whenever you introduce new information, make sure you give them time to digest it. If you want a good quality decision, maybe you shouldn't even push a decision on the same meeting as you introduce new information. Let it digest within people. Ask them to share in smaller groups before you ask them to share within the big group, and you will have greater participation, and you will really use the diversity of the group. That was all from me for today. This is a subject I will come back to. I love talking about extroversy, introversy, and our different preferences and how this creates conflicts. And it's all about trying to give you some of the tools that I'm sharing with companies today that are bringing them loads of value and hopefully help you to thrive. If you like what I'm doing, like the video, please leave a comment on the blog. I would love that. Connect with me on whichever social platform you're on. You'll find me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm even on Medium. Yeah, great talking to you. See you.